This is Debbie from Project 39 Mini Albums. This is the tutorial of how I made the What's Cooking recipe mini album. This also could be used for other things. There is a video walkthrough which is linked in the description box, but let's go ahead and get started. And here is the tutorial. All right, so we'll start with the covers. So I have two pieces of chipboard that are 7.5 by 9.25. I already put some score tape on the back. Score tape sheets would be fabulous right about now. And I have a piece of cardstock cut to, the cardstock is 9.5 by 11.25. The chipboard is 7.5 by 9.25. So you want it 1 inch bigger on all sides. So that's add 2 inches to the measurements of the chipboard for the paper to cover it. I'm going to add some glitter glue just to fill in the gaps where I don't have score tape. And then I've got these cardboard shims. Now you can get some really nice ones from Country Craft Creations, but in the meantime I'm going to put that in, and the shims will keep it straight on the paper, which is genius. A genius idea. I'm gonna take my bone folder and just push it down for a little bit, let that dry. All right, and we'll do the other cover. It's the same thing. I'll put the shims in. And I've got my chipboard with a bit of score tape. That, again, if you had the score tape sheets, you could use that to make this go easier and make sure that it sticks. Because there's nothing worse than your album cover not sticking. You don't want air bubbles in it, especially when you're trying to put on flowers or anything else. You want to make sure that it's got the adhesion. All right, we'll push that up, make sure that's straight. I am taking this piece, and there we go. All right, I'm going to let that adhere some more while I do the spine pieces. So you want the spine to be 1 inch more on the top and 1.5 inches more on the sides. So you need a 1.5 inch for the sides. And I did use cardboard. I had some sheets left over that were not full pieces, so I'm going to use that for the spine. And the spine measures 3 by 9.25, so the cardstock to cover it is going to be 6 by 11.25. So just get that in there and center it. We'll do the same for the next one. And the reason I have 2 spines is because I'm going to have it close, have a flap closure on the front. Now, if you don't want to do that, you can not have just have one 3 by 9.25 inch piece and ignore the other ones. Oops. So, and I have one piece that's 2 by 9 1/4. And so this is the piece that's going to go over the top. All right, we don't need those shims anymore. And I don't need the scoreboard momentarily. But I am going to grab a bone folder. And so I'm going to take and turn this upside down and use the bone folder to burnish the cardstock along the sides of the chipboard. Just find it with your bone folder and push down. And then we're going to push it in. We're going to crease it. I'm going to go in fast motion because it's important to see where the crease is. Cut off all of the rectangles and then take your blade of your scissors, put it against the chipboard, because we're going to trim off these rectangles. Whatever overhang there is. So just I'm going to go through and crease the rest of these little pieces, and then we'll come back. And then go ahead and glue down the 4 sides of the covers and the 2-inch piece, but only glue down the top and the bottom of the 3-inch spine pieces, the 2 3-inch by 9 1/4. All right, so you have 1 flap, 2 covers, and 2 spines. Let's take 1 spine and take some score tape, and we're going to put it on the wing, but not right up against where the chipboard is. We're going to go, maybe about 3/16 away from that. Actually, I'll put it on both these pieces. And burnish. And I'm going to take my bone folder and push down the cardstock so it's lying flat. All right, we're going to take off the score tape on the right hand side, and we'll put this up against the top of our scoreboard. And before I adhere, I'm going to add some glue. So you're going to put this right, we're using the scoreboard to keep everything flat. So we're putting it right up against the chipboard. And I'm going to turn this over and do the same for here. And I'll turn this over and give it a good burnish. All right, now we're going to do the same for the next piece. So you're going to have cover, spine, cover, spine. Actually, before we do that, let's take the flap and put the flap on that remaining spine piece. So same thing, same procedure. You'll pull this until it stops. Oops, this is not straight. And what will happen is the spine piece, when you've got it right, the spine piece will sort of flip up. All right, so again, we have cover, spine, cover, and then we want the spine and then the flap. So we'll remove the score tape backing. And there we go. So it's actually going to go this way. So the flap will put magnets on and it will stay that way. So there we go. There is the book. Now let's go ahead and take some clips and let's just let that rest for a while and let the glue dry. So we're done with that for now. Let's work on the hinge. Okay, this hinge system is going to be different than any one you've ever done before. So I can get that light. All right, so we're going to start with a 9 by 12 inch piece of paper with a 12-inch side at the top. We're going to score it 1, 1.5, to 2 3/8, 2 7/8, 3 3/8, 3 5/8, 4 3/8, 5 1/8, 5 3/8, okay, 5 7/8, 6 3/8, 6 5/8, 7 3/8, 8 1/8, 8 3/8, 8 7/8, 9 3/8, 9 3/4, 10 1/4, and 10 1/4, and 10 3/4. All right, so I made a mistake on that. I'm just going to turn this over and erase it. Okay, and the reason that it's so wonky is because we have the longer hinge pieces for the clear pages. And we've got some that have 3/8, some pages have 3/8 in between because the pages are going to be thicker, and some have just a 1/4 inch because they're not going to be as chunky. So there we go with that. Now let's put on, we're going to use score tape here just so it's easier to follow. So grab your 1/4 inch score tape, and if you have 1/2 inch, great. I'm using 1/4 inch and 3/8. So I'm going to take the 1/4 inch, and everywhere there is a 1/2 inch gusset meeting, I'm going to put 1/4 inch on either side of that. So there's 1, 2, and skip down to the middle. And then 2 more pages down below. So again, it's anywhere that you have the 1/2 inch pieces meeting. And that's it for the top side. I'm going to burnish that ribbon. And then turn it over. And anywhere there is 3/8, we're going to put 3/8 score tape there. So there's 1 there, and there's 1 more at the bottom. And then there are some 1/4 inch gussets that we'll put 1/4 inch score tape there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops. All right, and then we want some on the wings. And I'm just going to take my 3/8 and put a couple of strips down at the bottom. And the way I put my hinge on is a little different than how Tamara from Country Craft Creations will do this. You can revert to her method if you want. This is just how I am going to do it on this book. All right, now I'm going to flip it over. And anywhere there is the 2 1/4-inch tapes, I'm going to fold it and burnish. And I'm going to pull these up and fold back and forth along that score line next to it. And let us, do I want to use score tape or glue? We're going to use glue. So anywhere you've got those mountains, and there's 5 of them, you're going to put some glue and have those 2 mountains hold together. So there is that one. And that one, then there's one right in the center. And then there's 2 more down at the bottom. And there's one more. So that's anywhere the 1/2-inch hinges meet. You've got the 1/4-inch score tape on the top. We're going to put those hinges together with glue. If you wanted to use score tape on it, go ahead. Most of the time I do. All right. So you've got 5 hinges. Now you've got 2 3/4-inch sets of hinges. We are just going to fold those up, but we're not going to attach them. Fold it up and burnish. There we go. So what you're going to have is you're going to have a page, and then you're going to put in those refill pages, then a page, then a refill page, then a page, then a page. All right. All right, I'm going to cover the spine now. You need a piece 9 1/8 by 5/6, whatever scrap you have left. So I'm putting a piece of 1/4 inch score tape on either side of where these two, where the spine and the cover meet. Not right on the edge, but rather about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. And then I'm going to take some glue and be fairly generous and cover the center. It's going to come down to the bottom, so I'll make sure that I have glue there. And then just on this side of the score tape, and then I'll put more here once I cover it. So being really careful, and I'm making sure there's glue on the edge. Try to get down as close to the bottom as you can. And there we go. And I'm going to open this up, lift it a little bit, and add some glue on that wing. All right. And as you can see, I was pretty generous with the glue. I mean, anytime it's the Hinge system, I want to make sure that it's going to adhere. Now I'm going to gently take my bone folder and folding the book up. Let me see if I can move this a little bit. As I fold the book up, I'm going to go gently to that corner. I don't want to go too much that I tear it. And fold the book. So we'll do the same for this side. Find out where the fold is. And then just gently burnish and fold the book. And there we go. All right, and give that a little bit of a chance to dry. All right, then we're going to come back with the Hinge system. So we're going to put it on starting from the center and moving our way out. So just take the score tape. So remember the center, there's the 2 pages and then the 2 3/4 inch hinge and then the center. Take off the score tape on both sides of that center page. And eyeball where the center is on your book, not just side to side, but top to bottom, and adhere that. So it's really just the 2/4 inch. I'm going to go closer to the bottom. And in this case, I'm using the lines on my the mat to help me judge where the center is and make sure it's straight up and down. So I'm going to burnish with my fingers just those 2/4 inch score lines, or 2/4 inch gussets. And then I'm taking my bone folder and making sure there's still a crisp, clean line for where the next two bellies are. So now these don't have anything to keep them together, these two 3/4 inch flaps. So you're going to have to make sure they stay together when you're putting down the next pieces. So eyeball it before you put it down. And take off the next one piece of score tape. It's a 1/4 inch piece. So pull the 3/4 inch flap together close so they're together, and then gently push down the next, that 1/4 inch, and do the same for the other side. So we've got that 3/4 inch hinge. We'll lift this up and take the 1/4 inch score tape backing off. Pinch that 3/4 inch piece together, and then just put that hinge down. All right, we're good. And as long as everything's straight, then you can peel off the backing on the last 3 or 2, whatever you have. All right. All right, now I'm going to take my bone folder and burnish. Turn them the other way and burnish again. All right, and then go ahead and take a bone folder and burnish in the seam of where the cover and the spine meet. One more time, make sure that they fold nicely. And they really should bend back and forth both ways. And then let's go ahead and take them and put them together and let those rest for a little bit while we work on the pages. All right, we're going to put the pages together. They're very simple pages. You'll need 5 sheets of 6 3/4 by 10 and 5 sheets of 6 3/4 by 9. The 6 3/4 by 10, you're going to take the long side, put it at the top of the scoreboard, and score 1/2 inch on both sides. So do that with all 5 pieces. And let's move the scoreboard away. And I'm going to grab scissors and miter the corners. I can do 2 sheets at a time. If you're not sure if you're going to miter, you bring your scissors to where it'll just stop at where your score line is. And then just gently trim a little bit off. And then I'm going to fold those inwards. And burnish. Okay, and I'm using glitter glue to put this together. So we'll start with one. And so what I like to do is put the bottom against where that scored 1/2-inch piece is. Because now I know it'll line up, make sure the sides are good. Add some glue to the top. Push that down. And then pull this up. And so that'll be straight. So let's do that with the rest of the pieces and get our pages made. Okay, so now our pages are done and we can put them in the book. So I start towards the back. And dry fit them first and realize I probably should trim a little. So I'm going to just trim just to the bottom of where that 1/4-inch score tape meets, and do that to your 5 pages, not those 3/4-inch ones, the 5 other ones. Let's dry fit it first, make sure it's going to fit nicely. Perfect. Okay, so let's take off the score tape backing. And put the pages on. I start from the back and go to the front. And then I'll pull this other page up, make sure they're straight. There we go. And once we've gotten all those pages in, take your bone folder and burnish. Okay, we're going to do page 1 and page 10 at the same time, because they're the same pages. So you're going to need 2 pieces, one for each page, 5 3/8 by 9, score with the short side at the top on the long side at 1/2 inch. And then you'll need 2 pieces, 4 5/8 by 3 1/8, and you're going to score on the short side with the long side at the top at 1/2 inch. And go ahead and miter all those corners. And we're going to put them in the book. Actually, I'm going to fold in burnish on the score lines. Add some glue. And this is going to go on the page closest to the spine. And just get it in as straight as you can. And then the smaller piece is going to go here. What this is going to be a flap with a magnet for both those pages. And I'm just going to center this on the right hand side. And then we're going to do the same for the back page. I just had too much glue on there. So I'm going to put this close to the right hand side of the page. And there we go with that. And I'll add some more glue and center that on the left hand side of the page. And I'm going to put magnets on there, so I'm going to show you how we do that. So I have the basic gray magnetic discs, and they come in positive and negative. So you're going to grab a set of each. Positive, negative, and for the back page, positive and negative. And I'm just going to show you how to do it on here, and then we'll just, there are other pages with magnets, so you'll know how to do it after this. So I'm peeling the backing off of one, and it doesn't matter if you're using the positive or negative. I happen to have positive in my hand. And I'm going to put it on this little flap. I'm going to put it on, I don't want to come close to the edge, or even about 1/8 of an inch, because I want the decorative paper to cover the magnet entirely and have enough room to glue it down. So I'll probably go about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge of the flap. Then I'm going to peel off the backing of its corresponding partner, so I'm using the negative because that one was positive. Put it on, and then make sure this is straight and fold it over and push down. And now that one will stick there. So that's how you do the magnets for your pages. So I'm doing the same thing with this. Got 1/4 inch away. Peel off the backing of the other one and push it down. And that's all you have to do. All right, let's go on to the next page. Okay, so the next page we're actually going to do 4 of the same pages. And this is going to be, let me show you to you in this book. It's going to be a pocket page with an acetate flap, and it's got magnets to hold it. And the reason I do this is thinking whether you use this as a photo album or recipe book, you don't have to put the pages in the book or the recipes that you've collected from newspapers. All you have to do is just stick it in that envelope. So you're also going to need to grab your decorative paper and put it on so you can cut the flap or the cutout for the acetate. So you're going to need 4 pieces that are 8.5 by 10 1/8. One for each of the pages. So take, with the long side at the top, short side, we're going to score at 1/2, 5/8, 9.5, and 9 5/8. So rotate now. So the short sides at the top score at 1/2, 5/8, and 7 1/8. Now you're also going to need to make a template from some chipboard at 5 and 7.5. So at some point do that. But go ahead and score the other 3 pieces and then we'll start cutting them. Now we're going to we're going to miter the corners. So everywhere there is a rectangle or square on the corner, we're going to miter it. We're going to go to the innermost cross section of where the miters go. So we're going to go to the inside score line and slightly miter on both sides. Got it? And same here. We'll go to the inside. And do that to all, can you see it? Do that to all 4 pieces. Okay, and then before we put this in the book, we have corresponding flaps to keep all that closed. So let's grab our scoreboard one more time. And the flaps are 1.5 by 9. So you're going to score at 1/2 and 5/8. And miter all those corners too. And let's go ahead and grab a bone folder and burnish the flaps. Don't burnish the other pieces yet. So on the larger piece, so we're going to turn it over so the bumps are at the top, and we're just going to take this bigger flap, add some glue, and fold this over. And the reason we're doing this is because I want this a folded side to be in our opening. Now this is going to be the underside now. So go ahead and do the rest of the pieces. Okay, now you'll need pieces of designer paper, 6 3/8 by 8 3/4. So go ahead and grab that, and grab your scrap chipboard, 5 by 7.5 for your template. And you'll also need some acetate. You can get by with using 2 8.5 by 11 pieces. It's going to be real tight on the sides, but go ahead and grab that, and then let's reconvene. All right, we're going to work on the pocket with the acetate. So I've cut the design paper. Actually, I'm going to turn it this way, and I'm placing it on to make sure there's a even border around it. I'm actually going to pull it off and add a little bit of ATG to the paper. I'm going to have to glue it down again, but I want to put my magnets down before I glue it. So here I'm just gently placing it. And on this one, the bottom side is where we had folded that larger flap, and that's going to be on the outside of this page. All right, so now I told you grab a piece of chipboard and cut it. I'm using 5 by 7.5 as a template to have sort of a small border around it, so there's a big window. If you have a rectangular die cut, you could use that as well, but I don't, so I'm going to use this. Oh, and there is ATG on both sides. That's okay. I'm going to center this down and grab an exacto with a very sharp blade. If you haven't changed your blade in a while, go ahead and do it. So on this side, I'm cutting through 3 layers: the decorative paper, the cardstock, and then the folded over cardstock. So just do it. I'd rather go 4 or 5 times at light pressure than 1 time at heavy pressure and mess up. And then I'm just going to rotate and do all 4 sides. By putting down the ATG, it helps keep it in place, but it's not necessary. Just hold it down tight if you don't have ATG. And then I'm going to turn it over and make sure all the corners are, and obviously they are because it's coming apart, except for that one. Okay, so that is fabulous. Once I've adhered the magnets over here, so I'm going to put it in first in the book, but it's important to remember that you're going to use magnets. And then I'm going to take this piece that we've cut. It's got a little ATG, but if you just pull gently, it'll come. And I could put this, if I wanted to, underneath the paper. It's just that exact size of that cut. So you could put it down underneath, so then when you're looking through the acetate, you see a pattern. That's entirely up to you. But before we do that, I'm going to take these aside, and we're going to use acetate. So I have 8.5 by 11 sheets of it. I'm going to cut it in half, so it's going to be 8.5 by 5.5. just because I can get more out of it. And now these, this window is 5 inches, so you only have 1/4 of an inch on each side, so just know that. I am going to use art glitter glue to hold it down, but just knowing I have more room on the sides, but not as much room on the long side. So I will take one of my acetate sheets. And put it down. And then just let that dry. So go ahead and do the other ones. Actually, what I can do right now is take this and glue it down on 3 sides, not glue down the side that I'm going to have to put the magnet though. Okay. All right, and so again, that's going to be on pages 2, 3, 8, and 9. So, oh, before we put it in the book, let's go ahead and burnish the fold lines. Okay, now we'll grab the book. And I'm going to put this part down first, that's closest to the spine. And then once that's down, I'm going to double check, make sure the fold is where it needs to be. And then put down the flap that's going to cover it. Now, you could make a bigger flap. The reason I made it this size is because I wanted it to look seamless once the page is on. I'll show you what I mean. So in this book, I experimented with a larger flap, and to me it looks a little, there we go. To me it looks a little uneven. Now this one is almost the right size flap, but I rounded the corners, and you may want to do that. I put in plain paper for here and stuck a cut apart in here. But on these other ones, so I matched the paper, and it's a very small border. It matches just about in size the border on the other side. So same with that one. So whichever look you want, if you like that larger border, that's about 2 3/4 inches, because this is about 2 inches. So whichever you want. But at this point, you want to add in your magnet on both sides and then cover the flap with whatever decorative paper you want. Okay, so I'm going to show you that I've adhered this page. It's got the acetate on it, and I've glued down the frame. I put magnets to hold everything in, and now I'm going to glue the sides down. Holding in the edges so they don't extend over the page, because don't forget we've got that 1/8 of an inch little gusset on there. And I'll just take my bone folder and put it in and push that down and let that dry. So now I just have to take a piece of paper which will measure about 3/4 of an inch by 8 3/4 on both sides. And then those pages are done. All right, now we're going to do the stacked pocket pages, which are pages 4 and 7. So for each of those, you'll need one each of 9.5 by 7 3/4. And you're simply going to score on the 2 long sides and 1 short side at 1/2 inch. And then we'll need to cut this down. So grab your paper trimmer. And you're going to cut the bottom piece at 2.5. So the page with the score on the bottom, cut at 2.5. And then you'll cut the rest at 2 1/4. And there's going to be one piece left over this, just a little bit bigger, but that's okay. And you'll also need to get your, decide what designer paper you're going to use for this. And you'll need to put that on. So the paper that you'll need is going to measure 6.5 by 1 5/16, depending on if you want a large border. So go ahead and miter the corners of all those pieces. So this is the bottom piece. And then put on your designer paper on all of those. All right, now we're going to work on the stacked pocket pages. So the bottom page has the 3 sides have the score line, and then they go up. So I've already cut the paper, so it's about 3/8 of an inch smaller than the cardstock. And I'm going to adhere all this paper. and simply center it on the page. That's all you have to do. I have 2 pages like this. The other page I use this pattern. This page I'm just using the B side, this retro pattern, which I think it's cool too. So the pages will coordinate but not match exactly. So we'll go ahead and get that on. And the last one. And from that 12-inch, so I cut this paper, the width of the paper, which is 6 3/4, and then it's out of the 12-inch piece. So here's the leftover piece, and I think I might put this on the top. And then the other ones will go below it. Now let me show you, I've got one all ready to go. Okay, so here's the bottom piece for that. I'm going to just attach just the very bottom tab. So just make sure it's centered real good. And that's all you have to do. I'm not attaching the 2 side flaps. And then also on this one, so here's the leftover piece. I'm going to flip this over and have that retro pattern face down. You could do it whichever way you want. You could have this one face down, but I'm just going to have it this way. All right, so that's attached to the paper. So now we want to go, I need to figure out where they're all going to go. And the bottom of each one is going to be covered by the top of the one below it. So you have to just space it and see how much is going to be covered. Now, if you cut the paper from the bottom, you get some of that pattern. You can see the paper will make somewhat of a pattern. So I want it spaced evenly. And then once I know how it's going to go, then I glue them down. So I'll just take this one. And glue that right on top. And then the next one. And then the next one. And then finally, I'm folding this down and putting glue on the tabs and then just covering that. You're going to have to hold it down a little bit because there's several layers that we want to make sure the glue adheres. So we'll do the same for this side. Nope, not right there. It's to the right of where the 3/4 inch tab is. So I'll first glue this down. And this is about 3.5 by 6 3/4. Now there's not as much of a pattern here, so I'm not so worried about this one. The other one had more of a pattern because you saw the the mom and daughter cooking. You could also use SAcore tape to help hold this down. And I could have glued this down first. Now you really can't put any 3x4 cut aparts at the top because they'll slide down to the bottom. So you can put small cut aparts in the bottom pocket or the next one, but not at the top. If you wanted to do something like that, you would have to make the pockets at the bottom attach. But all right, so there we go. There we've got the so there is the stacked pocket page all done. We are going to put these pocket pages in, and we're going to cover the flaps. So cut a piece of pattern paper just about 1/2 inch, and I'm using SAcore tape just because I want that extra stability, sort of like using interfacing when you're sewing. And then center that on and adhere it. If you're smart, you would probably do this before you put the other pages in. Okay, so I've got my design paper on both sides of that 3/4 inch flap. I'm taking an exacto and I'm going to put it in here and slice this gently apart. Make sure it's an exacto with a nice new blade. So the reason I'm doing that is because now I'm going to make a hole. I'm going to punch a hole here, and I'm going to put a brad in with this inside it. Now you could do one of two things. You could open that, tape this in, and close it again, but I don't know how many of these I'm going to put in, so I'd rather make it removable. And then the other thing is the legs of the brad. It will be hidden in between the two sides of the flaps. Now you could just open it up, glue it in, glue it together, don't worry about it, or just leave it closed and put a hole through both at once. But I'm trying to make it look, trying to hide that the legs, the raw look to it. See, that cuts really nice. If you have a good straight exacto, it goes right through. Practice first. Make sure it's going to work first. And then let's go ahead and, if my hole punch will work, that would be great. If not, see if you can get some kind of pokey tool and just make a hole manually. All right, there's one. And let me see what kind of brads I have. So I decided to go with just some brass brads just because they're longer, and I didn't have anything to match the colors. So just put them in, and then I'm putting in these pages. We'll just separate the brad, put that in. So you could put one page in, you could put 5 pages in, you probably could even put 10 pages in. Depends on how many recipes you have. And this is open right there. So you could stick the recipe in there, and you can put 2 or 3 in the same pocket if you wanted to. And then it's easy to get out if you wanted to. Now this page closes. If you wanted to, you could tape or glue this shut, but I think I'm leaving it open just so that way I have access to add more pages. So there we go with that. Now let's go ahead and make the next page these, which this side has just a couple of pockets to put in your recipe cards, and this one has places to glue your recipe cards. Okay, page 5 is going to be just a pocket with a page with 2 pockets. And these pockets will take 4 by 6, so again, photos or recipe cards. And all you're going to need for this is to take a 5.5 by 5.5, 2 of them, and score both of them on 3 sides. And since we're scoring, let's go ahead and take page 6. So for page 6, you'll need 2 pieces, 6 3/4 by 4 1/2, and just simply score on the short side at 1/2 inch. And also for that page, you'll need 2 4 1/2 by 3, and you're going to score on the long side at 1/2 inch. Let's move those aside. All right, so I thought I was recording how to do this page, but I don't have it. So it's already done. Let me tell you how I did it. First of all, you need some decorative paper that's 8 3/4 by at least 2 1/2. I mean, you could go the whole page if you want, but at least 2 1/2. And these pieces that are 5 1/2 by 5 1/2 and scored on 3 sides, put the one side to the left of the page and then glue the other one from the bottom, then the top, and then the other one, just match it. So make sure that the bottom of the top flap or the top pocket matches the top of the bottom pocket, if that makes sense. And then there's some pockets for you, and those are big enough to put in your recipe cards. So the other page is just as easy. There is the 6 3/4 by 4 1/2 flap. So just go ahead and adhere that onto the right hand side. And then the other flap, I of course I rounded the corners and I put magnets on it and put magnets on here. So adhere this, adhere that, put the decorative paper on, and voila. And these are great just to put the recipe cards on as well. So you can glue them on here if you want to. Otherwise, they probably will stay in. All right, that's what I have for you for that page. For the back pocket, you need a piece of 8 1/2 by 3 3/4, and you're going to score it on the 2 short sides at 1/2 inch. And the one long side at 1/2 inch. We'll go ahead and grab scissors, miter the corners. And grab your bone folder and burnish on all of the score lines. And then let's grab the book, and we're going to adhere just the bottom flap on the bottom of the book. So just center it on the page. And there we go. All right, now I've already put some large basic gray magnets on here because I'm going to attach that onto here, but I want to cover this section. So I'll probably take a piece of decorative paper, cover this, fold it, and since this is 12 inches long, I'll have to get an extra piece and cover over there. So I'm going to do that. I know it's a shame to cover over these, but the good thing about this paper is there's 3 sheets of each. So we have more of these cut aparts. And I don't know if you have a Brother Scan and Cut. Tamra of Country Crafts Creations has showed how to, or done a cut file or something. You'll have to look into that. I do not have a Brother Scan and Cut, so I don't understand all about that stuff. All right, and now that that's that way, I'm going to glue down these flaps. So there's a pocket. And cut some paper. Nope. So should we do this side or this? Well, I'm going to go ahead and use this paper. So I'll cut that down. All right, and then grabbing my bone folder, I'm going to make sure this book will fold. And then we'll add another piece of paper for there. And that is how to make my family recipes book. One final note is I did add magnets inside, so I have 2 of the larger basic gray magnets here. You might want to do 3, or use a different kind of closure, but it stays shut with the 2, but 3 would be extra special. And then in the cover, I just found this on Pinterest, this equal measurements, and I backed it on some red cardstock and put it on there. But that is how I made my family recipes mini album and recipe book. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If there's any questions, please leave it in the comments. And I hope you like and subscribe, and don't forget to get this fabulous paper. This was exclusive to, I'm getting the cover sheet. This paper, What's Cooking, was made exclusively for Country Craft Creations. It is fabulous paper. You'll love working with it. So go ahead and grab that and make this album or any of the other ones you'll find on Country Craft Creations Facebook group and have fun with it. Have a great day.